few more minutes. Everyone who's joined us so far, we will give everyone a couple more minutes to get logged in, and then we'll get started. Just another minute or so. Oh, there's Kevin.
Hey everyone.
Hey Kevin.
How are you? Let me move to so you're not getting the lines in the background.
Sure, no problem. Thanks, Kevin. We're giving the attendees just another couple of minutes to get in, and we'll get things kicked off. All right, thank you everyone so much for joining us. Welcome virtually to Villanova University. My name is Daniel Gerton. I'm the director of the Graduate Tax Program here at the Charles Woodger School of Law at Villanova University. We are really excited to have you all join us to share some perspectives on some of our students who've gone through the program and how they've managed both work and life and adding classes into the mix. Just to give you an idea of the agenda for today, I will kick us off with a program overview, give you a little more details on our programs, our graduate tax programs, in case you're unfamiliar. That'll be brief. I'll just go over the main points of the program, and I'll be available as well afterward if you have any specific question about the program. And then we will get right into the panel. I'll have some opening questions for our panelists. And then if you do have questions as they're speaking, you can put them into the Q&A, and we will switch to some audience questions after we get the ball rolling. So without further ado, so first off, our program. So we are the Graduate Tax Program. We are a single office that we work as a single unit, but we do have two distinct degrees depending on our students' background. So we offer a Master of Taxation for those coming from a business or accounting background. The courses are the same for the most part between the two. There are a few slight differences, one being the number of credit hours required. So for the Master of Taxation, 30 credits are required for the degree. So it's 12 courses plus a tax research and legal reasoning module. Students can get through the MT degree in as few as 2 years, depending on how you schedule that. You can also take a little longer, depending on how much flexibility you want in scheduling. For those students who have a law background, who have a JD, we have a LLM degree. Again, same courses, same curriculum, just depending on the background, there's a different course progression. So that's for those who have graduated from an ABA accredited law school or the foreign equivalent. There are 24 credit hours to the LLM, so it's 2 fewer courses, and that one can be earned in as few as 18 months, again, depending on flexibility and how quickly you want to get through it. We also have 3 certificates. These certificates can be either taken standalone or as part of the MT or LLM. With the MT, since there are more credits, you can actually fit the certificate in the standard MT curriculum as part of your electives. With the LLM, you may need to take 1 or 2 courses beyond the 24 credit hours to get those certificates. But those certificates are in estate planning, employee benefits, and state and local taxes. So just a broad overview of our approach to learning. Our theory is that people learn best when they're actively engaged in their learning. So that's what we seek to do through all of our classes, to make sure people are engaging with the material, engaging with one another, and engaging with the faculty. We really don't want to talk at you or lecture at you. We feel that being involved in kind of a give and take between fellow classmates and the faculty is the best way for you to really engage with the material and learn it well. So we try to do that in all of our courses. No matter what the content is, we feel like there's always room to really understand it and dive into it a little more deeply than just kind of absorbing the information. We have an emphasis on no and low stakes formative and summative assessments with a problem-based approach. So rather than, you're not going to have, an exam first week of class that's going to be 25% of your grades. We really want you to learn and to develop throughout the course. So the course builds, and there are grades and there is a final exam, but when learning the material, we take kind of a low stakes approach so that you can get familiar with the material. If there are questions, you can work them out. Again, our goal is to impart the knowledge, impart the skills. So, we want to remove the factor of being anxious about grades early on, and to help you build throughout the end of the course. And we feature 8-week classes. So all of our classes are going to be 8 weeks long. They follow a similar format for the most part. We have multiple start dates. So fall, spring, or summer, we admit all 3 terms, depending on your work. There are busy times of the season, both on the legal side and on the tax side and on the accounting side. So, whichever entry point works for you, we are able to accommodate that. And we rotate our courses in a schedule that makes it to you're not at a disadvantage if you're starting in fall versus summer versus spring. I mentioned we have an 8-week class format. This is generally how classes will go. Each week you'll have your key themes. You'll have the dates for which that is. Monday through Wednesday is when you would complete the introductory video, your reading assignments, you do the foundation questions, and the bridge questions, and review any feedback. So that Monday through Wednesday, you're taking in the material, digesting it. Thursday is when you'd have your live session. So you would log into class for the live session. And then Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, the weekly assessment opens Friday at 8, and you have until the end of Sunday to complete that. And you have 60 minutes to submit that assignment. So you have a fixed format throughout the 8 weeks so that you know what to expect and you're able to allocate your time appropriately. This is kind of a sample course progression. Like I said, there is flexibility in scheduling. If you wanted to take things a little more slowly, you could, but this is just a general overview of what it would look like completing the degree in 2 years. So you can see our required courses there, as well as our electives. And again, depending if you are an LLM student or MT student, you would have a different number of credits. So this would look slightly different depending on what your background is and what program you're in, but generally this is, how it could be completed in that 2-year or 18-month time frame. On screen now is kind of representative selection of our elective courses. You can see the certificate courses over there on the right. We try to offer 1 or 2 certificate courses as electives each term, each semester. You don't need to be enrolled in a certificate to take those courses. And one of the benefits of enrolling in a part-time program, especially one that offers courses in 8 weeks, is that you can kind of pick up these skills as you're working. So if you're kind of looking at the year ahead or 2 years ahead, and you could pick up the real estate transactions courses and in 8 weeks have a better body of knowledge in that field and be able to apply it right away. So having those elective options is a really great resource. If it's you're a SALT person and you really want to focus on SALT, you can take just SALT electives, or you can move it around, or you can get a certificate. So you're really not locked into anything coming into the program as an MT or LLM student, and there's a lot of flexibility to kind of choose your own path there. A couple of quick highlights. We offer throughout the program webinars and specialty classes such as tax litigation. Even though we're a mostly online program, we do try to host some in-person networking events, some forums, some continuing education. We had a really great event over the summer, our first annual SALT forum, where we had about 100 people in person, another 100 online attending. So those are some great things to ways for students to engage with the program and with the content, even if you're not going to be in person for your courses. You could still pop over to campus for an in-person event and get to meet your classmates, meet the faculty, and to interact with the community here. Just a couple of quick highlights, focus on our high quality curriculum, flexible scheduling, I already mentioned, wide selective electives. I think one of the things that our students really enjoyed the program is interacting with top tax practitioners. We try to bring a lot of practitioners into the classroom to give you that real world experience. The students are practitioners themselves, so getting to interact with people who are kind of in the trenches, working on a lot of these issues is a really, makes it for a much richer classroom experience. And you also get to network with the local tax community, kind of find your tribe and what you like to do and interact with those individuals. I mentioned, we do in-person events. There's often CLE or CPE credits involved with those. I think one of the biggest benefits of being at Villanova is the Villanova Alumni Network. We have a very extensive alumni network. The law school specifically has a very great alumni network, and the university as a whole. So getting to become a part of that community and leverage your connection with other Villanovans is a really great aspect of the program as well. So I will stop talking for a little bit, and I will turn things over to our panelists. So first, thank you all for joining me. To kick us off, let's kind of go around, if you wouldn't mind introducing who you are, where you work, and when you were in the program. So we'll start off with Jim. We'll go Jim, Ben, and then Kevin.
All right, great. Thanks, Dan. So I'm Jim Sumter. I am actually in Birmingham, Alabama, which is nowhere near Philadelphia. So this has been an interesting experience, but a great one. So I'm a CFP. I'm in the financial planning world. I'm currently enrolled in the program, and as long as everything aligns like I have it designed, I'll finish up in December with my last class. I started about 2.5 years ago, so I've taken some time off, some terms, which we can maybe talk about that. But so I own my own practice. I'm an independent advisor with a very large RIA, but I own my own firm. I own an LLC, and then I also own 50% of a partnership where I'm purchasing and buying out an advisor that is going to be retiring in the next 3 to 4 years. And so I manage money, I do tax work, I do a lot of financial planning. And so I'm not an attorney. So that is my world. So hope that helps.
I'll jump in on my introduction. I am Benjamin Tamber. I am a senior tax associate at Grant Thornton in the Philadelphia office, which is where I live. I specifically work in the state and local income and franchise tax world. I know it's a very exciting world for me, at least. So as Daniel said, one of the ways that you can do the program is getting a certificate. I am looking at getting my state and local certificate. I've been in the program for a little over a year now. And just like Jim, I have taken a semester or 2 off already and looking to finish up the program in about 3 years based on my projections, which always subject to change, but that's the plan.
I can go first. I just want to confirm everyone can hear me. I think my internet's a little unstable right now. I'm getting a lot of.
Yeah.
So
We can hear you okay, Kevin.
okay, great. So yeah, my name is Kevin. Practicing attorney. I'm actually a graduate of Villanova Law School. So I graduated from Villanova in 20. Since I was a litigator for the first portion. Business litigation, commercial litigation, and at a certain point last year, pivoted my practice to being more transactional. And as part of that shift, it was asked of me back at Villanova. I practice in Lansdale, Pennsylvania, right outside of Philadelphia. And it's
Thank you, Kevin. So we'll jump right into our questions. So first, what made you decide to pursue the degree when you did? How did you know it was the right time? That's the question we often get from prospective students is they don't know, should I do it now? Should I do it later? So if you could just share kind of what were your considerations around timing and why you decided to jump in when you did. And Jim, we'll start off with you.
Yeah, so it's a great question. So I am in my early 50s. I've had a 26-year career, and I decided to go back and get a master's, after 22, 23 years of being in practice. So, why in the world would I even want to do that? And I told people there were three reasons. First of all, I felt like I probably had another, 15, 16 years in me of working, and I wanted to be able to help clients at a deeper level. I think the financial planning world is changing, and it's becoming much more holistic. And so the better the background that you have, the better planner you can be. So that was my first reason. The second reason is honestly, I want to teach as an adjunct at a certain level at some point in time. And I did not have a master's. All I had was an undergrad. And so I wanted to be able to do that. And then the third reason was the satisfaction of knowing that I could do it. I had not been in the classroom in over 25 years because I graduated with my undergrad in 1992. And so, it's interesting going back, but looking at a lot of my colleagues that are in the program, a lot of them are my peers in the same age and things like that, which I did not know going in, but it was nice to see coming out. So timing was good for me. Now, I also have a family, I have kids, and so my kids were at a point in their lives where they needed me, but not quite as much. So just from a timing standpoint, it gave me a little more opportunity. So that's why it was right for me at that particular time. I'm sure we'll get into why Villanova in just a little bit, but that's why I did it. And, I have absolutely zero regrets on starting it. So.
Thank you.
And I'm going to kind of piggyback off of something that Jim said in the desire to teach. I'm in my mid-20s. I want to teach at some time in the future. I'm an undergrad at Villanova too, so I guess the dream is teaching it back at my alma mater one day. So that one of the many reasons I chose Villanova for coming back to do my math. But I chose to start the program last year after I got my CPA, getting that over with. I didn't want to put too much on my plate between studying for a pretty large exam, taking on new clients, and starting my professional career as an accountant. And then once I kind of figured out that balance after a few years, and once I got my license, opened up some more time without having to study, going back to school and continuing to deepen my education, especially in the state and local world, so I can be a better SALT professional, but also get a little bit more experience in the other worlds of international, of federal tax. And then so I can have that qualification if and when I'm ready to go back and teach, start adjunct. Two of the current professors at the program are actually my colleagues. So it's been fun. I've actually had one as one of my professors already. So getting to see both sides of that has been a really great experience. But I guess in terms of the question of why then, why did I start last year, was just the right time. I still have time, I feel like, as a senior associate to kind of take on getting my master's, as well as I have the flexibility through the Villanova program of taking time off when I need. But I'll save that for one of our future questions.
Right. And Kevin, just in case, I know your audio was going out, so in case you didn't hear, we're asking what made you decide to pursue the degree when you did, and how'd you know that the timing was right?
Right. I think it's better now. I just logged on, used my phone.
Sure.
Well, it wasn't so much my decision when the time was right. As I said earlier, it was an opportunity that came up at my firm. We had a partner who worked in our transactional practice, who had a specialization in tax. He had his LLM, and he left the firm unexpectedly. And given my background in litigation and the sorts of cases I was handling, I was typically handling deals that had gone poorly. So seeing it from a different perspective, that's why I was offered the position. And part of that offer involved going back to school. So it was really what made me decide to go back was an opportunity at work and corresponding request from my employer that I go back and do it. Candidly, it wasn't the easiest time in my life to go back. I think a week before I was offered the position, we had found out my wife was pregnant with our first. I didn't have the opportunity to tell my firm that at the time. So even though it wasn't ideal, things have worked out, fairly well. But it wasn't, like I said, it was ultimately my choice, but it was really just a opportune timing in terms of me going back to school.
Great, thank you. So kind of in the same vein, in terms of, dealing with the classwork, with your work, and with your personal lives, in general, how much time did you dedicate outside of sort of the live session to each course? And just in general, when would you get your work done? Was it waking up early, staying up late? How did you manage to fit that in with your schedule? And Jim, I'll start off with you again.
That's a great question. Again, as I mentioned, I had not been in the classroom in over 25 years. And so this was very different for me. I am a morning person. I'm very structured. I have a routine. I get up, I do a little workout, do a little coffee, and then I'm usually in my office by 7:30ish. And I usually work long days, and so, but I do own my own practice, so I can also set my schedule. One of the things that, and what's interesting, my wife actually went back to school a few years ago, and one thing she told me, so I'm a calendar guy, but electronic, and she told me, she said, go and get a paper calendar and write everything in it. And that was very different for me, but I'll tell you what, it has worked. And so what it did is I was looking at everything on paper, and I said, okay, I've got this assignment due, by Sunday, or I've got this class that I have to get done by Wednesday. So I have to do these 3 things on Monday or Tuesday or on Sunday or on the weekend. So what I did is, as I've gone through the program, I've become very structured. And so a lot of times, Saturday mornings, Monday and Tuesday nights, I've pretty much dedicated to school stuff. Sometimes on a Sunday afternoon, if I'm watching a ball game or something like that, I'll have it on in the background, but paying attention and concentrating. And so I've used some weekends, sometimes at night, but it's very structured for me. And I would know what I had planned for the next 6 or 7 weeks, because I'm also running a practice, and I have work commitments and family commitments and things like that. And so if I saw that, during my normal study time, I was going to need to be doing X or Y, then I would substitute that time. And I generally have spent 10 to, depending on the class, 10 to 15 hours a week outside of, the actual class time, if you will, studying. And in most cases, that's worked really well for me. And I would say that's generally what I do. But being very structured, that was very good for me, because that's not my strong suit. But I sort of had to force myself into it. And I've got a pretty good GPA, so it's been, that's worked for me. So.
Yeah, so in terms of, again, piggybacking off of Jim, the calendar structure, I think, is how I've been able to manage it. I didn't leave a ton of downtime in between finishing up my studying for my CPA exams and starting the master's program. So basically, I just shifted that time of studying from one subject in the CPA to the next of whatever class I was working on. Obviously, being a tax practitioner, you have your ups and downs of busy seasons. So working around that, and I'm very happy to work at a firm that works with me knows that, especially my immediate team knows that this is something that's important to me, something that they want me to pursue and support me. So carving out time during the day, if we have some downtime, if it's a quieter time of the year, or if it's busier time, like making sure I can block off a little bit of time late in the afternoons or in the evenings, and being able to go through the bridge questions, do the extra readings that I want to do, or contacting my professor with any questions. So I didn't take as much of a structured approach as Jim. I was more of an informal approach of, I'm going to fit in time when I have it, looking at each week by week, saying, hey, I know I have a quiz on Sunday, or it needs to be done by 4 p.m. on Sunday. I'm going to take that on Saturday this week, and then maybe the next week it's right after class, because that's the best time for me to take it. And I think that having that informal structure for me allowed the flexibility of also balancing my professional life, especially in the busier times, but also my personal life in between. So finding that balance, I think is the crucial thing there, and figuring out how you as a person work. If you're a structured person and you block off certain amounts of time on specific days, or if it's, hey, maybe this week I'm going to do Monday, Tuesday, or you know what, this week I need to kind of push it off till Wednesday, or maybe I have time during the weekend and I can set aside 3 or 4 hours to study or review material.
Kevin?
Yeah, I would say that was more, or that has been more of my approach too. I think a lot of it changes with the course. I'm somewhere about halfway through the program now, and I find that each course has required a little bit different approach in terms of the time commitment and how I need to structure my days. And like I said earlier, I have a very young child at home that takes up a lot of my time, and is not always so predictable in when I'm available and when I'm not. So I would say, generally speaking, I find that Sunday evenings are always spoken for. We have weekly quizzes that are due, I think, by midnight. I try to knock those out sometime in the late afternoon or early evening. And then I do my prep work for courses, usually Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday, depending on if it's a Wednesday night course or a Thursday night course. I try to not do much on Saturdays. I'm busy enough as it is with work and with school, and I got some family obligations. So I find, somewhere between 3 or 4 nights a week, few hours at a time. And again, that can change given the course. I mean, I just got through, corporations, which I found it'll be a little bit more time intensive than some of the earlier courses in the program. So I think you just have to be flexible, but having a broad structure helps, but then some flexibility within that structure is what's worked for me.
Great, thank you. Yeah, and part of kind of what we hope to do with having a relatively similar structure for each week is to help you plan that out a little bit. So if you're someone who really wants every day planned out, you can do that. If you need some ranges where, like, okay, from Monday to Wednesday I have this time, you could do that as well. So we try to keep that consistency so that to the best of our ability and your ability, there can be consistency week to week and class to class, that you're not shifting gears every 8 weeks with the change of each course. What were some particularly helpful study habits? Because I think, there's the time management aspect, but then there's also just sort of the mental management aspects. It can be kind of, can be a bit of whiplash going from your work to your schoolwork to family life. There's all different kinds of problems that are kind of in front of you at different times. Are there any study habits that you mentioned, or that you encountered that were particularly helpful? Jim, you mentioned the having a ball game on. I'm currently in the MBA program at Villanova, and I'm taking it online, and a big football fan. And Thursday nights, during the Thursday night game this past season, they were all kind of stinkers. So that was my work night. I'd have the Thursday night game on in the background, didn't really have to pay attention to it because it wasn't super competitive. And that's, I knew if I had that on, I would be able to work on my work during that time. So were there any study habits or anything that you found that have been really helpful during your time? And Jim, we'll start with you again.
Yeah, so that's a great question. Again, I'm going to go back to I had not been in the classroom in 25 years. So when, back when I was in college and undergrad and we had a project or a paper, I mean, we had to actually physically go to the library, go to the Dewey Decimal System, pick out a book, you had them all laid out, and you copied everything. In today's world, sometimes you can get electronic books, and my girls who are actually both in college, they use an iPad and everything's electronic and all that sort of stuff. That does not work for me. What works for me is a physical book, a highlighter, a pen, and paper. And so and it took me about 2 classes to figure out this system for gym. And so what I do is I'm very organized, and so I have 3 ring binders that I print off the pages. I go through with a highlighter. I take notes. I print off the slide deck that a lot of the professors will provide, and I will take notes on that. That helps me as I'm going through material. And Kevin, I think you and I were in the same corporate tax class, and so that was very difficult for me because I had zero background in that. So I had to really get into that material, and I had to take a ton of notes. So as I'm going through my final exam, which, we do have the ability to use our notes during final exams, because I had been structured and organized in the beginning, and I sort of had a system, when I'm preparing for the final, I kind of always go back to my binder, pull out those pages, and I have it very structured and very, very organized. That worked for me. If I was trying to go through an iPad and where I had taken notes and electronic and all this kind of stuff, I would have died. That would have never worked for me. So I think what you have to do is say what works for you. How do you learn, and be very structured. The other thing that I'll mention is I find the lectures a lot of times that professors will do as a part of each week. I will many times go back and review those 2 or 3 times. I'll do it once as I'm starting it. And then if I realize, okay, this is a big topic that they're really harping on, or a lot of stuff builds. So you may not get it the first time, but the second or third time you go back through, you're like, okay, now I get it. Now I understand what they're saying. Now I can work through this problem set or law or whatever it is. And so I have found to be able to go back and review those things very, very helpful, and not just go through them once. So again, that's what's worked for me as far as little study habits. And it's taken me a couple of classes, and like I said, I'm almost done. So I mean, I'm literally registered for my last class, which is kind of cool and kind of weird at the same time. That's what's been very helpful for me, and I guess if it's helped with success, I guess. So.
I mean, I think I'm a little bit different. So I was still the pen and paper person in the sense of making my notes and highlighting right in the book. But when it came to either the pre-recorded lectures or tuning into class, especially if it's an online class, I'm somebody that was taking notes on a Word doc, because I like to be able to go back, whether I'm just re-reviewing the material, have an open book quiz or an open book test, and using a Control F and finding that keyword. And I make little margin notes even within Word of like, oh, this is that topic. And for me, it's faster to be able to keep up with what we're talking about, and also matching that up with the notes that I previously taken in my textbook. So I kind of do, I do the textbook work. That helps me do the pre-class questions, taking my Word doc notes during class and kind of matching those up in preparation for that weekly quiz. Like that was kind of my process of a little bit of structure in terms of how I go about the note taking, how I go about digesting the material. I was somebody that typically would review the cases that we might be looking at, or sections of an online textbook, I would actually just take notes on a Word doc rather than printing them out, because I can add in maybe a keyword or something, or a mnemonic that I was thinking of, or if it's a specific code section, I can just make that nice and bold for myself and then give myself the explanation of what's actually going on, versus just kind of like taking notes in a margin and having to try to remember where in a textbook it might be. That's kind of how I went about taking my notes and processing information.
For me, I have taken a different approach depending on the class. I've taken a few in-person classes where the lectures are longer, and I felt more comfortable taking notes during the lecture. And I've taken a few online courses where the lectures are a bit shorter. And, I value, just focusing and maybe supplementing some notes I've taken outside of class with what I've learned in lecture. But so I take a different approach depending on each class. But I would say the biggest thing for me as far as study habits has just been finding quiet time to dedicate myself to the reading and kind of block out distractions, which hasn't been the easiest to do. But coming from the background I've come from, this stuff is all new to me. Jim mentioned it before, but I deal with corporations on a legal level, not less on a taxation level. So unlike some of my classmates who are accountants or have some more of a tax background, this stuff's very new to me and it's very dense. So I found that I needed to just really sit down, block out the distractions, and kind of pour myself into it. If I tried to do two things at once, or if I tried to be segmented in my study, doing half an hour here, half an hour there, I didn't grasp it as firmly as I did if I sat down, blocked out 2 hours, closed the door, and got down to it. So for me, it was really just focusing my attention on the material because it was so new and so dense.
Great, thank you. So next, I'm curious to hear about your experience as a part-time student. So even if it's not been that long since you've been in a classroom, it's a different experience working while taking classes. And I think there's some, I mentioned earlier, there's some real benefits to that. But I'm curious to know what was, give me a little insight into your experience and how that your work and your classwork interacted while in the program. What did you see benefits of learning while working? Were there particular challenges? Give me a little bit about your experience of doing those two things at once.
Yeah, so that's a great question. It's and I get asked that a lot of time by clients or even colleagues of mine. In our firm, in our RIA, there's about 120 of me that are independent advisors, and a lot of people have come to me and said, "Man, you're crazy for trying to do this," or "Why in the world would you do this? You're on the backside of your career. Why would you do this now?" And again, I go back to, it helps me help clients at a deeper level. I'll give you literally an experience that happened today. This was on Monday. Client walks into my office. They've just inherited, and I'm getting the estate planning concentration so I'm getting an MT with estate planning concentration. I've done estate planning. I've been a CFP for 20 years, and every single class I have learned something that is applicable to my real world being able to help clients. And I can say that in real world example, client walks in my office 2 days ago. She's in her mid 30s, never invested, never had an account, but just inherited $200,000 from her father, who had a trust. Money goes to her in trust, and she had zero idea what she had. She came in, she said, "My dad said something several years ago about a money market. What is that?" And so I'm literally from step A to step Z walking this client through: A, what do you have? B, what is your goal? C, how do you invest this? But she walked in with the trust document. And I'm not an attorney, but I'm literally reading through the trust document, understanding powers of appointment. She's inherited this. She's the trustee, co-trustees. Because of what I've learned in wealth tax and transfer of life and estate, I'm literally understanding exactly what she has, and I'm able to guide her in exactly what she needs to do. So I have a new client. Her brother, who also inherited, is coming in at 3 o'clock today. We're going to have the same conversation. So for me, it's new client. It was a referral, and I'm now their guy. And I understood exactly what they have. So to me, is it worth it? Yeah, it was hugely valuable. I probably could have worked my way through it had I not had this program, but this program gave me extreme confidence to know, okay, I understand exactly what you have. And that's a real world, literally happened this week. So.
And I'm the same way. I mean, it has really helped my understanding and my technical knowledge, excuse me, of what I'm actually doing. I mean, I came in a few years ago, not really knowing state and local tax. I've done a lot of on-the-job learning, but being able to so far already take not only the SALT foundations, but the SALT income and franchise tax class, those have helped grow my knowledge, and I can apply them to my current consulting and compliance engagements and my clients. Like, oh, maybe this is something that we haven't looked at before. This is going to affect you. Let's look at this specific issue that may not have been as apparent before, or something that we didn't take a really like grainy look at, and let's re-examine that. Or whether it's the federal side, which is kind of what's coming up for me in the next couple months in terms of my classes. I don't have a ton of background in federal tax outside of Villanova University courses that I had 5 or 6 years ago. So it's going to be not only a relearning of that, but now I can understand what my colleagues are doing on that side of income and franchise taxes, on that side of an M&A merger. Like, I can handle the SALT side of what's going to happen, but now I can actually truly understand what's going on and maybe make different conclusions or better detailed conclusions for my clients. So I'm already applying it on various projects where now I understand different apportionment rules or different rules that maybe was just in a work paper before, but now I can actually truly understand what's going on. And I think one of the other things that classes have done is just piqued my interest more in what's going on in terms of tax legislation. I have to give Professor Michael Sems a lot of credit. I've had him twice in a row, as somebody that is a legal guy, as a lawyer, but really opened my eyes up to how effective tax legislation can be and how important tax legislation changes are. I mean, in terms of the sunsetting of the TCJA, like, not only does that have a lot of federal implications, that is a ton of state implications, because I'm not just looking at one jurisdiction, I'm looking at 50 jurisdictions. So understanding what my colleagues are saying, whether federal or state, based on changes in new legislation or continuance or sunsetting, has really helped me understand what I'm doing and be a better tax professional.
For me, the ability to apply what I've learned as I'm learning it has been probably my favorite part of the LLM program. I feel like, as much as I did benefit from law school, you there's so much course material all at once. You're studying it, you're spitting it back out for a final, and then you're on to the next one. And given where you are in your program, you could be a few years from ever putting it to use. And in some instances, you may never put it to use, depending on the course. That stands in sharp contrast with the LLM program, where, from the beginning, you're around professionals who are there because they need this for either a future endeavor, or, for most of us, it's, you're applying it in the job you're currently working. And, going in and I just got through corporations, and, I deal with corporations pretty regularly. So being able to draw on something that I learned in class like a couple of weeks ago and apply it to my job now, there was much more of an immediate feedback loop and immediate reward than I've ever gotten from any kind of educational programming I've gone through before. So that's been really great. And like I said, I went back to school specifically because it applied to the new role I was taking. So I've been able to realize those benefits almost immediately. It's been a really nice part of the program.
Great, thank you. I think we have time for one more question, and then I'll leave a little bit of time for some closing thoughts if anyone has any. So tell me a little bit about your sort of support system. You know, we were mentioning school and work and life, and you know, you have other relationships and other people you're interacting with in all those contexts. So for you, what's been important to have as part of your support system, whether that's family, friends, colleagues, who have you kind of enlisted to be part of you on this journey?
I will say I have a great support system. You know, owning my own practice, I don't have to go ask anyone if I need to, you know, if I have to take time off to do whatever. But at the same time, I have, you know, I do have a firm, I do have clients that I have obligations to, so I've had to kind of juggle that. But everyone has been extremely supportive. You know, our firm president, and our RIA is about $3 billion that we manage as a firm. So it's not, you know, it was important to get their buy-in, and they're like, dude, I can't believe you're doing this. It's amazing. In fact, we had an awards night at our conference earlier this year, and you know, some of the awards are fun, and I won the back to school award, you know. So here I am, you know, early 50s winning the back to school. I was like, that's kind of cool. Now, I also won the fastest growth last year. So I thought, okay, I did that while I was going back to school. That was pretty good. I have great support from my family. My wife and I are very competitive. And so she has told me what her GPA was. And so that is my goal, is to beat her GPA. We have nothing more than satisfaction of winning it, but you know, so that's been fun. But no, I've had great support. You know, we may get to a why Villanova. You know, I went to the University of Alabama for my undergrad, so I'm in the Southeast. So a lot of people say, why in the world would you go to Villanova? And I'm like, dude, look at the prestige, look at the program. It's amazing what that has offered me. You know, I've got some Villanova swag that I'll wear from time to time. People go, like, you know, are you at Villanova? And I'm like, no, but I got my master's in tax law there. And they're like, oh wow, that's pretty cool. You know, so it's been. I've had that great support, and that's been really important to me. My kids think it's cool, you know, so I've had nothing but support. So
Yeah, I echo that. Like I've gotten nothing but support. My parents are very, very happy. Of course, everybody's happy that not only am I doing undergrad, but of course going back to my alma mater, and it's mostly just because I want to go back to campus. It's nice to see at least another side of campus, going to the law school whenever I have in-person classes instead of going back to the dorms, getting to go back to my apartment in Philadelphia. But in terms of why Villanova, it's just a really great program. I know the prestige of it. And in terms of the support, having my firm and my colleagues supporting me. I mean, having one of my managing directors and having a director as both adjuncts in the graduate tax program does not have any negatives to it. It's somebody that is even more accessible to me in terms of questions and answers. But it's also, I'm really growing my Villanova network, not just from undergrad, but to the grad school. So I think that that's a really great support. As Daniel said, we had the SALT Forum, which was a fantastic program. So getting the support from my firm and my coworkers to go do these events as well as take classes. My firm helps me financially pay for the classes, which I think is a great thing now. A lot of employers are trying to help people go back to school that want to go back to school. And not only so having that combination of both a personal and a financial backing is just a wonderful support system. And people know that, hey, I need to take time in the evenings to look at classwork and get things done for class, or take time off just to attend class. It's really good to have that behind me.
Yeah, my firm has been great. Like I said, I think I keep coming back to this, but you know, they're the reason I'm here. So the support has come along with that. But by far, my wife has been my biggest supporter. And I think if you have a family, if you're married, if you have a boyfriend, a girlfriend, you got to make sure that they're on board with this thing too, because it is a significant time commitment, particularly if you have family. And it's tough when you get home after a long day of work and you've got a couple hours of studying to do, especially with the baby. Your partner is looking for some relief, and maybe you give it for a little bit, but then it's like, hey, I gotta hop into the office for a couple hours. I gotta I have class, I have to do my reading. So making sure that you have a supportive person in your life is really important. And my wife's been fantastic. She understands the opportunity this has presented, and she understands how much work it takes. So I wouldn't be able to do it without her.
Great. Thank you all. We are coming up on time, so I think we might need to wrap it up. But just wanted to extend my thanks to the three of you. Not only are you balancing personal life, work life, school life, we also ask you to come on and do these webinars. So thank you for finding some time, using your lunch break or whatever it may be to come and help us and to speak at the panel. So thank you very much for all of your sharing your experience and your tips and tricks. And we appreciate your willingness to help us further. And for me, working at Villanova, that's been one of I'm always kind of floored and grateful when we reach out to students and alumni, and they're always really willing to help us. So again, thank you. I appreciate your contribution to the program, both in the classroom and outside the classroom, and for sharing your experience with us today. So I'd like to thank all of our attendees as well. Again, you're taking time out of your day to come and find out a little more about the program and what it's like to be on the inside. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me, or if you've started the application process, reach out to your admissions liaison with any questions. We are here to help and support. So please don't be a stranger, and please don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you.
Thanks. Have a good one.
Thank you, everyone.
Absolutely.